Hi everyone, my name is Jandy Rojas, and today I'll be speaking about college tuition inflation. This speech was prepared by Carol Mora, Abigail Fask, Brett Guth, and myself. Everyone talks about the $1.2 trillion in the U.S. student loan debt bubble, but few have focused on the people most negatively affected by the crisis. Why? Because sometimes the truth is so painful and the solutions are so difficult to come by that everyone just instinctively looks the other way. The combination of high debt and no degree sends the worst case scenario individuals to economic jail, perhaps forever. Do you believe higher education is overpriced? Has it affected you or someone you know of? Our education continues to cost more than the cost of living. Finding solutions to lower the price of tuition is one of the important things we can do as society. Our first problem involves the problem of outstanding student loan debt owed by a household income. The lowest wage earners, those from households with incomes below $37,000, held 24% of all outstanding student loans. That's more than $240 billion in student debt weighing on the shoulders of America's poorest citizens. 10 cents to 24 cents of every dollar earned went to pay student loan debt. I have this article and this graph by CNBC. And here it is here. As college costs have risen faster than incomes, students and their families have had to borrow more and more to make up the shortfall. And this shows the increase in loans that families have had to get, along with the rise in price of tuition. Among students with the lowest household incomes, about 79% of those who start college will never graduate. Nearly all of those students will nonetheless owe money on the loans they took out to attend school. College debt wasn't always as troublesome for Americans. The U.S. Census Bureau found that the average student loan jumped 83% to $27,547 between 1993 and 2011. The current situation is a result of higher tuition costs combined with a reduction in student aid by many states. The annual growth rate of college tuition and fees has outstripped the increases in healthcare costs, new home prices, and consumer index since 1978. Our second problem in this crisis is that Americans have believed, and rightly so, that education is the key to success, the great equalizer. But only 30.4% of Americans actually have a bachelor's degree or higher. Besides the social support needed to make it through college, degrees are expensive and paying for them has always been part of the problem. Low-income individuals are more likely to need to work either part-time or full-time to support themselves or to contribute to their family's income, making it very difficult to balance classes with employment demands. The reason for these tuition increases is a rich source of debate in the U.S. Some critics contend college spend too much on faculty compensation, counseling, administrative expenses, and technology upgrades, not to mention perks like rock climbing walls and extravagant fitness centers. So, how did we get to this place? And where's the quest for the American dream? When did it become the American nightmare? It all began with good intentions. The federal government's desire to ensure every American could afford college began in 1965. Congress opened up the federal pocketbook in 1965 with Title IV of the Higher Education Act, creating the first federal grant and loan programs. The influx of federal money nearly guaranteed a steady flow of students for colleges. Unfortunately, starting in the 1980s, schools saw that they were able to increase tuition well beyond the rate of inflation without a decline in student enrollment. In fact, student enrollment increased even as the tuition rates continue to rise. And here's a graph kind of showing that. Let's see here. In the 1970s and 1980s, college costs rose slower than the price of other goods and services. But beginning in the 1990s, for reasons not very well explained, the price of a degree began rising faster than the cost of other goods and services. And that just shows that increase here. Let's see. The aggregate market value of these non-taxable funds, which are used to finance portions of schools' operating scholarships and capital needs, jumped to a whopping 9% between June 2009 and 2010, alone to $356 billion. This caused universities in America to safely invest $356 billion in tax-exempt funds. Meanwhile, households with incomes less than $37,000 now carry more than $240 billion of student loan debt. The system of financing U.S. higher education has built up the hopes for countless numbers of low-income families to go to college, only to leave them, in fact, in an even worse financial situation than they were before because of student loan debt. While many will say that government funding is the cause of tuition increases, we are not entirely sure that's the case. It is the government funds that have caused the problem as much as it is the college, because of the way they've chosen to use their money. They choose to benefit their institutions rather than to benefit the students. Students seeking a better life for themselves and their family are willing to do pretty much anything to get their degrees, whether it means working full-time or part-time while attending classes or accumulating even more substantial amounts of loans by solely being a full-time student. We believe that these facts tell the real story behind the student debt crisis. It is a story few U.S. politicians and news organizations have publicly addressed. The bottom line is that the current system of higher education and high tuition costs funded by free-flowing federal financial aid is broken, and the failure to fix this has placed an entire generation of lower and lower middle-class people to economic jail. So, what are some solutions? A few options include reduction in university fees, tax breaks, and loan forgiveness, cutting down on unneeded costs such as technology upgrades, administrative expenses, parking, perks like rock climbing walls and fitness centers, and focusing more on providing quality education to these students. Another significant cost for many universities' focus is on their athletic department. They can really care less what the students' grades are as long as they're winning and making the school look good. For example, Texas A&M University guaranteed $75 million to its new football coach, Jim Fisher. They have also spent $485 million over a 2-year span redeveloping Kyle Field for their football team. Why not invest that same type of money in education costs? Number 2, we can increase the tax-exempt employer tuition assistance. Currently, it's capped out at $5,250, which, depending on the school, can leave the student with extremely high amount of loans. As mentioned in the Forbes that was written by Ethan Siegel, we need to join forces, form a student faculty union, and put pressure on the colleges themselves to move away from a model where the administration and the board of directors are the sole decision makers. Quote, if colleges think that the way they teach and do business, they can save students and taxpayers billions of dollars without compromising their educational missions. In conclusion, today we have explored the issues involved with overpriced schooling. There are many benefits of attending college, but sometimes we catch ourselves wondering if it's worth it with the financial burden that comes along with getting our education. As affected students, we need to pay particular attention to the things we can change in the system. We deserve to know what exactly we are getting with our tuition we expend and the breakdown of costs. We must fight to make aware of the struggles and difficulties we're all facing because of overpriced schooling. By fighting to make these problems apparent to the public, I firmly believe there will be a drive to make a change for people of all ages. Thank you.